The following is a special presentation of the Sports Journey Network. Sports Journey.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Breakdown. I'm your host, Dujane Bland, and today we have a very special guest. One of the drivers that I feel was left out on the 30 under 30. This guy has 4 top 5 finishes. He finished top 10 in the Heritage Series. He's no one other than John Randell. John, what's going on, brother?
How's it going, man? Appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, your story is very interesting, and you're talking about racing, a racing deal that you guys have had as a family for 60 years. You've been there, done that. You guys not only race, but you guys work on the vehicles. First, though, tell me about this history that Randell Racing has.
So my dad started racing back in the mid 1960s. Him and his buddies were weekend warriors. This was a term that was used by like Big Daddy Don Garlis, Connie Coletta, because what they would do is they would race at. So what my dad and his buddies would do, they would race in Lions Drag Strip on Friday. They would go to Irwindale Saturday and go to Orange County Raceway on Sunday. And be back at the parts department at the local Dodge dealership here in Vegas on Monday. My dad would race. He used to race a factory stock automatic, which is still a class around today. Sadly, it's just a bunch of copos racing in the factory stock. He used to race the original C-Gas in his Chevy too. My dad used to run around with Kenny Judy Black back in the day. He used to be with his friends Terry Weaver, who owned a Bel Air that was a beautiful car. And then what was great was that my dad, he raced in Las Vegas, so he raced at Stardust Raceway, which I still have photos of him taking pictures of, great Top Fuel legends. He raced down in Gene when they did a timing association. He was at the old Las Vegas Speed Run before it was Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So anything in Las Vegas, my dad has been everywhere.
Now, was it something that you just kind of gravitated to? Because your mom was even involved. It says that she's bottom end on that Super Comp dragster that you guys have. Or did you kind of like know that's what you wanted to do and you were able to be shoot in to be able to drive and start your career, which it was in junior dragster, I believe.
Yeah, so basically with me, my memories, growing up, which we always have fond memories. My memories growing up was always watching my brother race. My dad had a 1974 Chevy Vega that we raced in Super Gas and Super Street. So my brother had started racing it, which my dad made a few laps just to show they could still do it. When they first got it. But my mom made a few laps. She was actually pregnant with me when she was driving the car. So it was I was kind of in the car before I was even born.
Yeah.
But, 2 months old, my first racetrack was at Bakersfield, California, which right now is the March meet, which I'll be there Saturday. Unfortunately not racing due to parts issues. But
yeah, that's drag racing.
Yeah, but growing up, I was born into racing, and we just kept it going, and watching my brother race, and then watching my nephew race in junior dragster in like 2001, 2002. I knew I wanted to get in. I wanted to race, and being around cars, 2, 3 years old, working on the front end of it with needle nose pliers, not knowing like what I'm doing, sitting in the car, just imagine what it would be like. And 3 years old, my parents bought me my first fire suit, my first helmet, gloves. The only thing they messed up was a head sock because, every badass driver always has a head sock.
Right.
And, like, when you see those selfie shots of Matt Hagan where he has the head sock, well, at 3 years old, you gotta imagine. So I grabbed some underwear, put it on my head. The crotch holes were my eye ports, and then I put my helmet on. And that's just how it was. And when I couldn't race, I was at Las Vegas Mini Grand Prix, just having fun, pretending I was a race car driver. And so when I got into the junior dragsters and made my first pass, which I still got photos of, that just kicked off everything. Everybody at the track knew I was going to race. Everybody knew it was just a matter of time. At the time, you had to be 8 years old, and I think at the time was 5 years old. Oh, I would have been in it.
Right.
So this year's year 18, being in the driver's seat. So there's been a lot of times where I could have just stopped it all, but this is just one of those adrenalines. It's better than drugs, but this is one of those you're having fun and experience shows.
Yeah, and the things that I really noticed about your operation, first off, is just the fact that you not only drive, but you work on the cars. And I feel like that's one fundamental that really needs to be had when you're talking about securing a driver to drive Top Fuel or A Fuel, because they not only know how to drive, but they also can get an idea, a feel for the car, because they work on it. They understand and hear what's going on with the car. They know the intricate parts inside and out. And I think that is very helpful when it comes down to having drivers. And I think that those drivers are usually a lot better because they have a better understanding of what's going on.
No, and I agree. And so for like the Supercom dragster, my dad, my mom, and myself, we built a big block Chevy 565. At first, we were having issues with it, and then towards the end of 2021, with a few help from Chad Langdon and Garrett Wiles, they had called me and asked me, like, basically, I spent a lot of phone time with them to understanding like how I can make this consistent.
Right.
And towards the end of 2021, when we got to Pomona, we ran on the throttle stop 172 miles per hour, which a lot of people with a 565 are doing 168, 169. So we build fast motors and we find speed for some reason. But we got it to the point where we made that car consistent and it knows how to go. It knows how to go around. Especially one of my fondest moments was beating, the defending Supercomp world champion right now, James Glenn, who also won $100,000 in the Fall Fling. Now, granted, when I had raced him in Phoenix in 2021, I had no idea who he was.
Right.
All I know is that weekend it was already crap for me. Things weren't working right. I'm watching Shelly Anderson basically run through her books to try to figure out what to dial. I'm watching my buddy accidentally pop his parachute, and I'm over here freaking out because I don't know what the car is going to run. Like, I ran fast all weekend.
Right.
So going to that weekend and knowing that was a big achievement for us because we went 3 rounds. I hadn't gone 3 rounds since I first got into Supercomp, which was 2015. And, that was just the way it lifted off my shoulders because the car was consistent. It was running 890 dead on every pass. And it was just one of those, I messed up as a driver, but there again, I'm working with the timing. And once we got to Pomona, it was just I was pulling double O's like it was nothing. And then, so we'll be back at it in April with the Supercom dragster. I'll get my feet wet again, and then we're just gonna have fun. But no, I agree. Like Pomona, it was, when I do the burnout, I know the track is sticky because the longer burnout I can do, then I know they prepped it more. With the Supercomp car, since knowing everything I know, I could tell you what the car is doing at 8th mile. I could tell you if it's spinning. I could tell you if it's, not pulling right. Every little divot, every little bump, it's just laps down the track. And that's how, whenever I get into the A-Fuel car or Top Fuel, I need to work on it first so I know I can have a better understanding of it because I can't just get in the car and say, I don't know. It possibly dropped a cylinder out.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest keys, in my opinion, with drivers, is that if you work on it and you have the understanding, it's easy as a driver to relay it to your crew chief on, hey, you know what, this is probably what's going on. Or when you look at Jim O and Clay Millican right now, like even when Clay Millican had Mike Kobler, Clay Millican was bringing that report back to his crew chief.
Right.
And now their cars are getting faster, they're getting better because of that driver interaction with their crew chief.
Right. And I what I like, too, is that you race in the Heritage Series. And this front-engine dragster, it's a beauty. And I love the history of it being created and recreated. And that really, this front-engine dragster really prepares you for A fuel or top fuel because it's pretty difficult to drive. Am I correct?
And some aspects, yes and no. The faster you go, if you're not lined up in the groove properly, you can get out of whack. So this last pass I had, it dropped the cylinder, so I went right, and you're steering it with one hand and shifting it with one hand. But it does prepare you to build up the speed. I always said that if you can drive a front-engine dragster, you can drive any other car. Because it's one of those where the steering is a lot different. However, the run and the feel of it is about the same. Difference is your legs are just over a rear axle when you're looking at the motor.
Right.
But no, the front-engine dragster, with 8 passes, so I had 6 passes under my belt, and I cut a 001 light. And, it was one of those that took 6 passes to do it. And then 8 passes in the car. I'm still getting used to the car. I'm not comfortable in it like I am with the Super Comp.
Right.
And with the motor braking now, I think it's a better opportunity. Well, it's a better opportunity for us to rebuild the motor and make it faster, because now I'll understand what's in my car. I'll understand how we do things. And then once we bring it back out, then I'll have that feel for it again. But I can tell you this, during that testing on 6 cylinders doing 811 on 163, we found some power. We knew something worked, but, rocker arms and push rods said no. So,
yeah.
But it happens. That's racing. But no, people ask me all the time, what do I prefer? And you know what? They're both fast. They're both fun to drive. But having that feel for the sitting in the front engine dragster, knowing how many legends came out of that car, it's a badass feeling.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car too, and this having your own racing operation takes work, and you really market yourself. Could you tell us how difficult that is when you're looking to take the next step? How difficult has it been being able to continue to just get up and knock on doors and still work to get that yes?
Oh, it's been difficult. It's one of those where, sadly, my last name isn't from wealth. My last name isn't from, our own business. My last name is just my last name.
Right.
So approaching a company, especially when you have no representatives, you have no team backing you, you have literally nothing. So basically, you kind of have to not really BS your way around, but you have to sell it. In marketing, I've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of people and have close connections who've taught me and shared some secrets with me on how to be better in marketing. So everything in marketing, I'm self-taught.
Right.
So everywhere from our logos, our designs, our marketing deck that I updated, I'm self-taught. And I've been lucky enough to have friends who overlooked it and said, yep, this works. Oh, you need this. And over the years, I have over about 1,000 emails of companies and people saying no. But I still keep going. Keep going. Because this is a dream that I've had since I was 3 years old. And over the way I see it is that every person that says no, it's a better opportunity. You get better at it. In every failure you have, you find out where your flaws are at and you rebuild from there. To the point now, from where I started to where I'm at now, I got to the point where I can send my marketing deck and have a conversation. Just recently, I sent my marketing deck to a company, and right off the bat, it was one of those, so be broad with me, tell me what you're actually looking for. And it was one of those conversations we had, which is, okay, for a fuel ride for $250,000, that was one of the questions was, what's $250,000 going to get from me? And it was one of those questions where I've never had that, so I had to pull something and, speak from the truth. In which it turned out to be great, where I sent it to my friends who are like big time shots in marketing, and they were proud of my answer. So like back in 2020 going to 2021, I had posted a rendering of a top fuel dragster with and tagged Car Parts. Car Parts is a big company that if you need parts for your vehicle, you can order online, it gets shipped to your house. I had sent them, we had sat down, we had did everything. I had somebody else do the marketing proposal, but the problem was when I looked at that and I look at mine, it didn't give you, what your ideas are, what your objectives are.
Right.
And when I went into that meeting, it was kind of one of those, I felt I didn't know what I was doing. And that's where, it's an embarrassment at that time.
Right.
And, somebody who I had trusted, I didn't, no, they talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk, essentially. And so it's kind of embarrassing for me. And so when I see them now, at the Pomona last year with John Force, I'm like, okay, they saw my vision, my idea. You know what? Maybe I'll go back with my revamped proposal. I'm going to go back for it because at the end of the day, the way I do it with like Les Brown, if they say no today, go back tomorrow. Maybe somebody got fired. Maybe someone got dropped. You just keep going and going and going until somebody says yes or somebody blocks you. So,
right.
And that's how I push it, is that if you really want something, just keep chasing for it, because all the work you've done, you're about 75% done with it. It's that extra, 25, 30% that you just need.
Right. And it seems like you have two things that you have to battle. You have a full-time job as a police officer, and, which I think would be pretty cool, it would be really awesome to see, and for people who have type 1 diabetes, to see someone that worked hard, and yes, they have this thing that they have to deal with, but it gives them that thing that they can also do this too, or whatever they choose to do, that you don't allow your type 1 diabetes to hold you back.
Exactly. So with my type 1 diabetes, I was diagnosed July 13th in 2008, 2 weeks before the Western Conference Finals in Brandenmere Raceway in Denver, Colorado. Basically, the doctors said we need to send you to the hospital because for ketoacidosis. Basically, once you're diagnosed, you have a lot of acid in your body, and you're going to ICU, basically. I didn't want to go because I wanted to do this race. So when my blood results came back, they were like, all right, you know what, just monitor it, do what you need to do. And then, 2 weeks after I was diagnosed, I was in Denver, Colorado racing. And a year after I was diagnosed is when I won my first championship. And that's one of those where I've had more success with my diabetes than I did without it, because that is the drive, that is the motivation. I had the motivation becoming the first type 1 diabetic in top alcohol dragster. That didn't come true because of Arthur Allen's daughter, Sarah. Right. She's also type 1 diabetic, and by all means, she's doing the same thing as me. She's chasing the dream, chasing with the family, and I respect that. And you know what? It doesn't matter if it was me. It doesn't matter if it's her. It doesn't matter if it was anybody else. Sure, we want to be the first, but you know what? At the end of the day, as long as I'm in a car, it's fine.
Right.
I'm doing something that many people said no. When I got licensed in my Supercom dragster, NHRA held my license for 6 months because my A1C wasn't below a standard that's not ever listed. So for 6 months, they held my license. I worked hard to get my A1C down. And then once I got it down, my first race was, I had 6 passes under my belt, and my first race was Lucas Oil Divisional in Las Vegas in 2015 in November, the very last race, and I went 3 rounds, 170 cars, and I made it to the last 40. And it's
awesome.
one of those where, you built the drive, you built the success, and then you just keep it going. Granted, on the police side, that's what funds the racing. That's what keeps everything going. But at the end, because even on the police side, not a lot of diabetics can be police officers. Some states won't allow it. And that's where it kind of brings into aspects of, you know what, maybe there are some diabetics who don't want to drive or be police officers. Maybe there's some that, they want to be a crew chief. Maybe they want to be a bottom end guy. Because now you could be a truck driver with type 1 diabetes as long as your A1C is under control. You could be a privateer pilot. There's so many jobs now where you could be a type 1 diabetic where 15 years ago you couldn't.
Right.
So this is the aspect of, okay, I've always wanted to be a police officer. My next goal is to be a top fuel driver, and I know I'll achieve that. And the thing is that it's just more of, even though I have this disease, it's not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. I reached out to somebody in the off-road industry, and he won't allow any diabetics in his series because of the potential of passing out while in a race.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I get that. I get that, but what's the difference between me and you passing out? Because instead of pointing the fingers and saying, well, you're the one with the disease, then you know what, you're kind of in the wrong.
Right.
That I reached out to a company who is still in the sport, but I'm not going to say any names, but he thought it was a joke. He said, I'm not going to bring this to my executives. And so it was kind of one of those, it's a slap in the face a few times, but at the end of the day, when I'm the one holding that Top Fuel World Championship, now I can say I'm the first Type 1 diabetic in all of motorsports to win a World Championship. And it's going to be a slap in everybody else's face when I make it.
Indeed. The hard work, dedication pays off. Now, I have a question for you, because you do everything. You have to market yourself. You're working on these vehicles. You're taking care, you're maintaining, it's coming out of your pocket. In doing and trying to advance in the sport of NHRA, in the sport of drag racing, how hard does it make it for individuals like yourself when we seem to have this funnel of paid driver deal where people bring money to the table and they're able to get a ride, but yet don't have the same level of experience that you or another individual would have that maybe does, like you said, doesn't have the money or the name or whatever to back them. It's just you and your hard work in putting together these type of marketing portfolios. Does that hinder or hurt your ability or seem to hinder people like yourself?
I would say yes, only because here's the thing. Even though my track record may not speak for itself, and because since I'm the one that's tuning my cars, I'm the one that's doing everything. Every time I lose a first round because I second guess myself,
right?
I take it to heart. It's one of those, I'm not a nice guy, because Super Comp and Junior Fuel and Comp Eliminator is a tough category. Those are tough cars to race in. And once you find success, it's great. But when you have somebody who's just flashing around money and they do it for a year and then all of a sudden they're up in top alcohol and then all of a sudden they just make their way into the top fuel, then it's like, what have you done? Like, there's nothing to show me that you've done great. Like, there's a, not going to mention any names, but there's a funny car racer who just happens to get in the top alcohol dragster because money talked, and you crashed the funny car.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of hype to it. And the problem is that it's building the experience. These cars, anybody can get into it, or anybody can get into a super street, super gas. Anybody can get into any car. It's fine. It's the point of stepping up. And when you go to a team and you want to be a part of that, to be A fuel, some teams want $100,000 up front, some teams want $1 million up front. Nobody's going to put you in a car for free,
right?
And unless you have a business and you're bringing that business to them and helping them out by giving them free motors or free things, and you're kind of building that business to business relationship. But it also hurts because it's like you're not building your name to go in the top alcohol. The way I'm seeing it now, which I like, is that top alcohol is like your Xfinity series.
Yes.
In reality, it is. But right now, top alcohol is being built as the up and coming. But how are you going to get up and coming drivers into top alcohol when you're just picking drivers who are just funding their money when you have drivers who are better than that?
I have to agree with you on that.
So we have drivers, who will ruin relationships or ruin families, rely heavily on websites for subscriptions. It's one of those where it sucks because there are plenty of racers out there that are way better than the ones who are funding the ride. There's been the way I always see it is that the people who don't make it, and this came from a Ryan Villapoto story, the people who don't make it, all the rich kids, they don't make it because they're not tough enough. They don't know the blood, sweat, and tears and grind that, we all had to sacrifice.
Right.
Where some people are losing house mortgages to race. Now, granted, that's the worst way to do it, but people are sacrificing their house to chase this dream.
Right.
Where, somebody like Don Schumacher or Tony Stewart or, John Force, they're not going to see that because unless you're bringing me money, then I don't care if you finished, second in top dragster in the world or this. I don't care that you lost your house to chase this dream. As long as you bring me $4 million, we'll call it good.
That seems to have not changed. And I'll tell you a story. So I was in my early 20s, and I wanted to go to Frank Hawley's drag racing school. And I just wanted to know if you could skip up. I really don't have any fear in license and top alcohol dragster or funny car. And at that time, I don't think they had the dragster. I think it was just the funny car. And the guy says, yeah, you can do that. They're not going to discourage you. Obviously, they're going to talk to you about it, but they're not going to discourage you if that's something you really want to do. And, I just got into a conversation with him about what it would take to get to that next level if that was something I wanted to do. And that what you just said still stands true, and that was, over 20 years ago, still stands true. The fact is that you either do it yourself or you're bringing sponsorship or money to the table. It really doesn't matter. I've heard the stories about, go to your local racetrack and, race what you got and step up and do that, but it doesn't appear to be always. That isn't always the norm. More of the norm is I got a sponsorship or I've got some money and I can bring that to the table, and that's how you're able to get rides. And that doesn't seem to have changed in 20 years. So it does make it difficult.
Well, no, especially if you look at, because I follow Formula One heavily now after Drive to Survive, And Alpine had $4 million invested in one of their drivers that up and said, "I'm not going to drive for you. I'm going to go to McLaren." That's one of those. They paid him to go into Formula 2, all the tracks. $4 million they invested in him so that he could be their driver. And that's the same thing in NASCAR, where you have teams who are going to people in the ARCA series and building them up, where it's like, how come we don't do the same thing? Now, granted, I've always had the kick of doing the driver development for drag racing, and I've been on that kick for years, and it seems like right now everybody's doing it with the Maynard family, which I absolutely love.
Absolutely, I think that's really good.
Because my thing is that, for example, we'll just throw like Ron Capps out there. If Ron Capps wanted to quit driving, but he still wanted to be part of the sport, he still wanted to be an owner, who is he going to choose? In this sport, it's a young man and old man's game. It goes back and forth.
Right.
But a lot of companies want a young driver, and it's one of those where, if you're looking at drivers, who are you looking at? Are you looking at friends? Are you looking at somebody who can bring money to the table? Because there are plenty of drivers in the Nostalgia Series that I would recommend to be in that seat more than somebody who's throwing $4 million that has no experience.
Bobby Cottrell comes to mind.
Absolutely.
I mean, guys killing it over there, but man, he would be. I think he could really do some damage in the Nitro Funny Car deal if he was able to drive in that series.
And Bobby's a great racer. Bobby's a great fabricator. He knows everything about the cars he drives. And every car he drove, he's won a championship in, what it looks like. And another person, like if you want to go Top Fuel, like Mindy Fry, Adam Sorokin, there are plenty of people in that series. Tyler Hester and Tyler Hilton. Those are great drivers in the Nostalgia Top Fuel.
Yeah.
Funny car, Jason Rupert's buddy. Jason Rupert I remember watching Jason Rupert in the Alcohol series. He did great. He goes in this Nostalgia series, kills it. Now he's in a funny car. I've always looked at it as people who come from the Nostalgia series are way better drivers than what, we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's a lot to handle with those Nostalgia Funny Cars. It definitely prepares you for that beast, in the modern time. I really, really enjoy that series, and I agree with you. It definitely begets drivers who are very focused and able to understand what those cars are going to do, because they have to deal with it on that level, and it's even worse on that level. So, yeah, if I was choosing a driver, I'd definitely be choosing from that series.
So, like, we'll go from my example. So, 2018, I ran the full series from the Division 7 side, and, my median reaction time was a 008. I was cutting 00s like it was nothing. And went from my mom's car to my car that I'm currently driving, and it wasn't a skip a beat nature. And then once 2019 happened, I was in the police academy, and then I found a time to race, went to my bracket race, went 3 rounds. So it was like, it's not skipping a beat.
Right.
And then 2020 comes, and then when the rumor that, or not the rumor, when the report came out that Jason Lyon was going to retire, I had, reached out to Summit. I had reached out to the executives over there, basically saying, "Hey, I'd be a great fit to drive for you. My dad raced with Kenny Black back in the day. This would be a great outfitting." My mom reached out to Rob Downing. I had sent my application in, my resume in. Even if I had to be a crew guy, it wouldn't matter. Like Dallas Glenn is a great driver, and he was a great crew member. He's doing all the clutches. Guy. And he's doing everything, and that's basically, how I wanted to follow. And now, it's didn't hear anything back from it. And it's one of those where, somebody came to the table and brought money. But even though at the time I didn't know what was happening with Summit and COVID.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things happen. I had told somebody that if Rick Hendricks came to drag racing, then somebody told me, oh, that would never happen. Nothing like that's ever going to happen. Well, now you got Rick Hendricks, part of Greg Anderson's team. You have Rick Ware having his own Top Fuel dragster. You have Tony Stewart having a Top Fuel and a funny car, and he's hopping in Top Alcohol. So all these ideas I've had all these years, they all work, but nobody wants to, try it. Nobody wants to go with the flow. And that's where I'm like, if you don't like it, you always back out. That's part of the sport. That's great. Like, yeah, you'll lose some money, but the thing is that there's so many opportunities of what drag racing has to offer that NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, motocross can't offer.
Right. I thought Tony was very good. He had an interview with Joe Costello, and there's a clip of him talking about the benefits of drag racing, talking about the ticket being a pit pass, and understanding, coming from that NASCAR world, how hard it is to get close to these drivers, to see the crewmen work on these cars. And he was encouraging people who are fans of the sport to buy tickets and go to the events. And I think that's the biggest problem with NHRA, and will help a lot and help draw more sponsorships. Because I think we're in a right period right now where we're almost back in the Winston days where, these sponsorships were very easy to come by. There were plenty of people wanting to be involved. And I think we're getting back to that point where there are going to be more businesses. There are going to be more, things that are not just car part sponsorships that are going to come into this sport. And, like you said, you just have to be willing to be able to try something new.
Exactly, and that's one of those where, if OnlyFans is coming to drag racing, okay, it's something new. We'll just, it is what it is. The way I always look at the market is that, do I want my 3-year-old daughter to ask me what OnlyFans is?
Right.
And that's where I kind of play in the market, is that back in the Winston days, with Winston, Smoking Joe's, Skull Bandit.
Yeah.
That's one of those. It's a different thing because that's been around for
Eons.
30 years, and it's a little bit different. And then, but it's one of those. That's how I look at it, is that we are entertainment. We are giving the fans what they want, which is good drag racing,
right,
and good racing. But you also have to look at it as like, it's also a family environment.
It is.
You want to bring a family environment into the racetrack, but also too, you don't want to have things that are questioning on your way back home.
Right. That you as a parent have to answer.
Yeah. So it's like you got to play the market just right.
I get that.
And that's where I like the fact SCAG is coming in and they're becoming a bigger sponsor in the industry. And same thing with RevChem and DHL and Mac Tools, and all these sponsors have been around for years. And it's one of those where if you can keep a sponsor, it's how you can build their brand. And
absolutely.
And work with their business. And that's all it is today. It's just a business-to-business relationship. But somebody who doesn't own a business, you have to figure out a way to help build that business and how to keep building that brand.
Absolutely. Now, we got only like 5 minutes left in this show. So my question, I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions here. Alex Laughlin, does he win a race this year?
No.
I don't disagree with that. It's repetition. Reps are important. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. The guy can drive pretty much anything. So I don't doubt that. But This is funny cars are tough.
They are, and you need more reps, you need more time. Look how long it took J.R. Todd to win a race in a funny car. Once he got comfortable in it, then he was, he's a contender. He's also a champion.
Right.
So it'll take a minute for Alex. I don't think it's going to come right away, but if it does, then hey, good for him.
Brittany Force, do we have a back-to-back champion?
Oh, I don't know. From all the things I'm seeing in the testing right now, I think they have some good competition because Clay Milken just clocked off at 368 and he shut it off at 900 feet. So I think she's going to have some competition this year.
Does Double E, Erica Enders, get a 6th title?
Oh, it's a possibility. The way Pro Stock is, unless you're an elite car, then you're always going to be in the championship hunt. But Aaron Stanfield, he put off a great performance last year.
He did.
Greg Anderson was picking up the performance at the end of the year, so I think it's going to be a close battle. We'll just have to see what happens after Indy.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our show. And John, tell them where they can follow you at.
You can follow me on Facebook at Randell Racing. You can also follow me on Instagram at Randell Racing. I'm trying to get my YouTube page up and running again, trying to post more content on there. But yeah, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram.
Guys, go do that. I really, getting to know the Randell Racing family has been special. The history and the work that they put in is unmatched. Like I said, John should have been a part of that 30 under 30, but it is what it is. But you're going to get to where you want to go. There's no doubt about it. So I definitely believe in that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Without you, we are nothing. So we appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to us here on The Breakdown. Well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen,